So my name is Angela Yore, and I'm the CEO of Skyparlour. We're a PR-led marketing services company focusing in on fintech. And I'm here today with Scott Dawson, from the CEO of DECTA. Hello, Scott. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Angela. How are you?
I'm all very well, thank you too.
Fantastic.
So, we're actually filming this podcast on behalf of the Payments Leaders Summit, which we've been at for the last 2 days, which has been a great conference. But we want to talk about your business, how you help merchants, and also, what your views are on the ecosystem. So if I can start by asking you, tell us a little bit about yourself and also a little bit about DECTA.
Thank you for the introduction, Angela. My name is indeed Scott Dawson. I am the CEO of DECTA Limited. It is the UK business within the DECTA group. On a personal basis, I'm a professional jack of all trades. I've been in the payments industry for 23 years now, which is over half my life. And throughout that period, I've worked in risk, compliance, sales, operations. I'm now involved with senior management. And I've kind of been everywhere and done everything within the industry. And this is climaxed into my CEO role at DECTA. DECTA is an end-to-end payment solution. We provide a wide array of services, from issuing to acquiring, white label gateway, a digital banking platform and such, all of which are designed to help banks, fintechs, and merchants kind of optimize and modernize their payments infrastructure so it's easier for them to grow. We're regulated throughout Europe, so we have licenses in the UK, Cyprus, and Ireland. We have a technology center in Riga, Latvia. We're principal members of Visa and MasterCard. Essentially, if there is a payment solution required, we can provide it. And I think that's really the strong point of our business, is that what we provide tends to be in-house, tends to be innovative, and tends to be tailored to what it is the merchant, bank, or fintech would need. So
what challenges is, because there's a lot of merchants here at the Payments Leaders Summit. I mean, there's obviously banks as well, but I've spoken to the likes of Transport for London and various others here. What challenges do you think merchants are facing at the moment?
I think merchants, particularly in the United Kingdom at the moment, are struggling. It's a hostile environment for them for all intents and purposes. We have a poor economy on a geopolitical basis right now, on a global basis. Obviously, things are very tumultuous, I think is the most polite way to put it. Costs are rising. Fraudsters are becoming more nuanced and better at what they do. There's not a lot of support from banks. There's not a lot of support from the government. There's not even a lot of support from some payment providers in terms of working with SMEs to help protect their interests and help them grow at this point in time. And it's really important to emphasize that SMEs are the lifeblood of the UK economy. They're responsible for, I think, it's a turnover of about £4.5 trillion per year. They're responsible for 27 million jobs, which is 61% of our employment. So the success of these merchants, the success of these businesses is really the success of the UK as a whole. And therefore, I think it's very important that we address those concerns. We listen to what the challenges are and come up with solutions. Because if we're not supporting SMEs, our economy is never going to improve.
So what's the landscape for the SME like now, Scott?
It's interesting. We speak to merchants on a daily basis. And if there's a common theme in the conversations that we have, is what they're looking for, particularly from a payments, from an acquiring perspective. They want a dependable, cost-effective solution. They want a business that will help them reduce risk, reduce cost, and increase conversion. And for all the innovative and exciting things that we're doing within our industry that will benefit these merchants by providing better cost efficiency, better conversion, better fraud management and such, in the nicest way, that the merchants kind of don't care. You don't start up a business to talk about payment flows. You start up a business because you're passionate about what that business is about. And a lot of the time when we talk about some of the more fancy innovations within the industry, that it's not that the merchant isn't interested, it's just not where their priorities sit. I kind of say it's equivalent to if you go to a restaurant and you order food, they don't say, and you know what's special about what we do? We cook it. It's just kind of understood. That's the assumption. So when you say we have a cost-effective solution, we're using innovative tools to help fight chargebacks and prevent fraud, when we're utilizing various payment methodologies to create a friction-free experience for your end consumer, to them it's almost an axiom. It's not that they see these things as being features, they see them as being givens. And I think as an industry, it's really important for us to understand that what's important and exciting to us is tangibly relevant to our merchants, to the businesses that use our services, but isn't necessarily what they're focusing on when they're looking for a provider. They just want to know that what they have works well, is cost effective, and can be depended upon.
Yeah, that's true. And, the national insurance has just gone up as well. So there's lots of cost pressures, particularly for merchants. And some merchants have very complex payments cycles as well, especially on the high risk side, but also, throughout we just, talking about outages, and Marks and Spencer's has just gone down, haven't they?
Oh, that's old news. That was yesterday. Yesterday, Marks and Spencer's went down. I was thinking about, what do I want to say about it today? Right before I came into this interview, do you know what happened?
What?
Co-op had a fraud attack.
Really?
Yep, and I don't know the consequences yet. I don't know the specifics yet. But right before I came into this interview, headline on my phone, Co-op's had an attack now. I'm getting tired of this conversation.
It seems to be virtually daily, doesn't it? Who knows who's behind it?
Yep. And I think different circumstances, there's different issues. But I think one thing that's common, if you look over the last year, it's always been high street banks, high street brands. It's our financial safe spaces no longer feel safe. And I find that very concerning. No one loves their bank. I don't think a lot of people even like their bank. But it's always a financial institution you could depend on, where you could keep your money, it would be safe, and you'd be able to access it as and when you needed it. Now you can't even depend on the high street banks to protect you financially, and I find that to be a horrifying prospect. I think what we're seeing is it does tend to be high street banks, high street brands that are presumably using legacy systems. And so the challenge as I'm seeing it is that these legacy systems don't scale well, they don't modernize well. And then when these businesses are doing digital transformation, they're not rebuilding, they're just doing patchwork. They're building on an old infrastructure that can't support the needs and requirements of a modern payment system. And so what we're seeing are outages, fraud attacks by fraudsters that are 3 steps out of the game. We're seeing all kinds of just disruption and turmoil at a time in particular when this economy and these people and these businesses can't afford it.
And what does DECTA do anything to overcome this situation?
We invest in resilience. The thing about resilience is it's not sexy, it's not exciting, it doesn't sound nearly as exciting as that new innovative feature or that new innovative product you're going to bring to market. But fundamentally, if you don't have resilience, people can't trust your business. If people can't trust your business, it doesn't matter what else you can provide. And so in addition to all the new, exciting, and innovative things we do, DECTA invests significantly into our infrastructure to ensure that these kinds of outages don't happen and these kinds of attacks don't happen to us.
That's really, for anybody at the minute that's, looking for something modern, you've got to put compliance and operational resilience up the top of your shopping list, don't you?
Yeah, and I think it's important to emphasize, no matter how much you invest and no matter what you do, bad things can happen. I think the term is act of God. There are fantastic fraudsters out there utilizing impressive tools. There are environmental factors, there are circumstantial factors that can make this kind of resilience difficult. But you need to invest, and you need to do everything in your ability and within your power to make sure that you're protecting not just your business, but your merchants and their consumers as well as humanly possible.
Cool. What areas of innovation in the industry stand out for you right now? There's a lot of talk about, AI. There's a lot of talk about, different types of payment methods, local, global. There's a lot going on in payments. What are you seeing that's really taking your interest? It's
less about the new and more about the ideas of the last 5 years, let's say, coming into fruition. So for instance, open banking is a great example. We've been talking about open banking and we've been trying to push into the market since 2018. But it seems to be this year in particular, 2025, when open banking is finally getting some traction. It's finally being spoken about. It's finally being to live up to that expectation. I think yesterday I heard that there's 11 million people using open banking, with about 12 million pounds per month being moved through the open banking mechanism. It's a brilliant service and it's conceptually sound. Open banking is undebatably an enhancement to our payments ecosystem. But I think where the challenge has sat, it is our expectations were too high. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have high expectations for innovation, but we kind of had this situation where the regulator and a lot of the payment firms thought, this is a good idea, it's brilliant, therefore everyone should want it right away. I remember in 2018 when this was happening, or when it was first being deployed, it was essentially, watch out Visa, watch out MasterCard, open banking's here, game's over, that's all anybody's going to use forever and from here on in. That's not the case. It's a brilliant supplement to an already very verbose payments ecosystem. Something we've really found in speaking to merchants and speaking to the consumers of those merchants is that most people don't think that much about payments. You know, if you go to buy your shoes online, you're not looking for that new, cool, innovative payment solution. You just want to buy your shoes. You want a frictionless experience. We can choose the shoes, hit pay, get on with your day. No one is taking time. I shouldn't say no one. Generally speaking, as important as some of these innovations are, there are industries burden. There are industries responsibility to implement and educate people about, because people as a whole, they're focusing on their day-to-day life, not the most new innovative thing happening within the payments industry.
Yeah.
Once again, kind of in the spirit of ideas that have been discussed over the last year coming into fruition, I think embedded finance continues to be exciting. I love the idea of non-fintechs having fintech functionality. That's something we support, and I think there's going to be a lot of growth in over the next few years. I think of there's some of the more abstract ideas, for lack of a better term, like AI, tokenization and such. They've gone from these concepts that are going to be implemented to actual practical solutions. I think this is a year when you're beginning to see the marriage between AI and products like fraud prevention come together effectively with a kind of a tangible benefit. Tokenization, everyone's been talking about it for a while. Now we're actually seeing it being implemented, and I think that's going to be great from a consumer experience perspective.
So what next for DECTA?
There's always a next for DECTA. There's always a lot going on that's exciting. I mean, kind of the default position of our business is that we're always growing and optimizing and implementing new solutions and looking for new partnerships and onboarding new merchants, fintechs, banks, and such. But if I were to look for a few kind of key areas that are of interest to me, we've actually commissioned a white paper in the UK with support of Skyparlour and census-wide, in which we're looking at what should merchants be looking for from their payment provider. And the way we've gone about that isn't speaking to the payment provider or the merchants, but the actual consumers that are using these services. I think there's a tendency in our industry, and it's probably not just exclusive to payments, but it's the industry I'm aware of, in which we tell people what they want as opposed to listening to what it is they need. And so the whole focus of this white paper is speaking to the consumers of our merchants and saying, hey, what is it you care about? What is it you need when you pay for something online? What are the other considerations you might have in choosing the merchants and using these merchants? And then therefore the merchants can understand, based on those requirements, what do they need from their PSP? And the results have been really interesting. It's a little bit of a carrot for me to dangle on. The research should be coming out in the next few months.
Excellent. Well, I'll keep a close eye on that.
In addition to that, we're doing a series of webinars at the moment. If you go to our website, www.decta.com, you can see what they are and when they are, but they're all about focusing on developing fintechs and what you can do to operate with our industry effectively. We have a really great new fintech fast track program, which is designed almost as a mentoring program for new innovative acquirers and issuers, in which we select certain businesses we feel as though we would benefit from our support and that we think have exciting ideas, and then we accelerate their growth by sharing our experience, our technology and such, to kind of help them enter the market as effectively as possible. It's an initiative I'm really proud of, and I think that the business is doing very well.
That sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
Really does. I didn't know you were doing that. So.
We're always up to something.
And finally, here we are at the Payments Leaders Summit in the Intercontinental Hotel just by Hyde Park Corner. Absolutely beautiful day, sun shining, all the greenery is out. Why did you choose to support this event?
Because it's genuinely good. I think it's probably the easiest answer I can give to that. We attend and exhibit at a lot of events, most of which do tend to be very good. But what I find is there's a lot of fintech events to go to where we talk about merchants. And there's a lot of more merchant-based events where they talk about fintech, but there's not a lot of good events where they actually manage to effectively marry the two, where you get payment providers and innovative fintechs and the merchants that actually use the services in a room, sitting, talking together, talking about real issues, real solutions, and real service offerings that can actually help move this industry forward. And I find there's a lot of value in the few days that we spend here.
Yeah, it's also, you're here for 2 days, so you get to know people, don't you? And I think, I loved listening to the lady who was from Transport for London talk about the challenges. We talk about it in our comms, we talk about it sort of at a high level, but when you're hearing somebody talking about the sort of consumer use cases, it brings the whole industry to life. That's what I like about it.
And on a personal note, the coffee is fantastic. Just want to throw that out there.
Well, I think we've come to the end. Unless there's anything else, any lasting comments that you've got, Scott?
No, just thank you for your time.
And I'd say thank you for your time as well. That was wonderful. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thanks, Anto.